are a tool of soft diplomacy, and we saw this on full effect with King Willem-Alexander and Queen Maxima of the Netherlands as they officially hosted Donald J. Trump in their palace. Huis ten Bosch. Yes, I probably pronounced that wrong, but Donald Trump got a special invitation to stay there while he is at the NATO summit. And I thought it was a great opportunity to again reiterate what royals do because Donald Trump is such a divisive political figure that some people are like, oh, lock your doors, the girl's got to be safe, and all these sorts of things. And it's like, no, that's not even what the royal families themselves should think about him. And that's not how, really, in some ways, they should try to think about any politician because a royal's job is not to be there to judge another world leader. Their job is to be a tool, a power of soft diplomacy, the ability to use something as simple as letting the president of the United States stay in the royal palace to grow a closer relationship to one of the world's strongest nations. And so we are going to get into this because I was like watching this, I was like so fascinated by it, so many things going on, and I hope you guys learn a little bit more about what goes on behind the scenes and how Meghan Markle was a horrible example of what a royal should do in a particular situation. So, guys, we are going to get into this. But if you haven't been to Royal News Network before, my name is Brittany. I do provide compelling royal commentary. So please smash that subscribe button. I would absolutely love to have you back. And we are running into the final weeks of your ability to sign up for a trip to the south of Viva la France. So this is to Nice and Monaco and to Provence. And so if you're interested in wine tasting, checking out Monaco, the gorgeous city where, of course, Grace Kelly was a princess, feel free to check out the link up above. We would love to have you join us. Again, we're sort of getting into the final stretch, and we would love to have people. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. So, this whole situation, I love politics. I follow politics fairly closely. I wouldn't say I love it. I take that back. I enjoy some aspects of it. And I was super fascinated to see how this whole NATO summit thing would come together because a couple of people had been talking about what will Maxima wear, what will she do, and all these sorts of things. And we got sort of this big announcement about what Donald Trump was offered by the royal family, and he took it. And we also have Princess Catherine Amalia at the tender age of 21, hanging out with world leaders at this official dinner. What royals do is so cool because royals are not bound by the politics of their nation. Yes, they are constrained somewhat by the policies a particular government puts forward, but they are not political actors. They represent as head of state, and they represent the people broadly. So their job is not to get mired in the tit for tat between parties. If you're in the United States, you know, especially that can be something that's very aggravating and annoying sometimes is that we had these two parties are constantly fighting, nobody can get along. It's very annoying. The royal is there to sort of hang above everything. That's what a royal does, is hang above it all and not really trying to pick one side or the other. Yes, perhaps some of their initiatives do lean closer to one party than the other, but their job is not to espouse a specific political ideology. It would be very weird, for example, a royal to espouse a communist ideology. That would be really, really bizarre. And that's not their job. And when you see this NATO summit, King Wilhelm-Alexander and Queen Maxima were there, not really to, let's say, enact policy. They can't really do that. Their job was to be the flash to the greater substance that would be happening behind the scenes. A way to get world leaders, especially somebody like Donald Trump, very excited at the prospect of having this close relationship because the royals have this unique glamour, this mystique that cannot be replicated. And even someone said, which is 100% true, I think they were more meaning it as a slight, but they said this on X, and I've said this before as well, is that Donald Trump may have a lot of money, but he can't buy royalty. And that is 100% true. And so the power there is immense by Wilhelm Alexander and Maxima and Katharina Amalia to put the best foot forward of the Netherlands and to make this event something more glamorous than it even could have been. And so I just want to begin with laying that foundation because so many people either love or hate Trump. I have had people who think I'm of either party. I really try not to say, you could probably make inferences, but I really want to approach this from a non political perspective and to say beyond politics what the royals are doing here. Because I could argue probably that Willem-Alexander and Queen Maxima, they're probably not really big fans of Donald Trump. He doesn't really align with them. You could say at least some of their ideas, I would imagine, but that's not the point. And we have a counterexample, which I think is terrible in regards to Meghan Markle on this particular situation. But let's look at some of the video we've got here. So I will say some of this is coming from X because that is sort of the I would argue the easiest way to do this because I was trying to catalog a lot of this. And part of this I will say, guys, just in case you're curious, covering this in part because I'm really hoping maybe just maybe I applied for to the White House as somebody who could maybe get press credentials for particular events. I'm hoping maybe somebody from the administration sees this, they like my work, and maybe I can cover the state visit between the UK and the US. Just putting that out there, y'all. That's just putting that out there in part. But I do find this very interesting. So here we have Willem-Alexander, Maxima, and Katharina Amalia. And here we have Donald Trump coming in. Now, unfortunately, there is no audio here because I'd love to see what they talked about. But here, let's just go ahead and watch a bit of the interaction. So you can say, I would see, this is a nice interaction. Good talk, good smiles, and seems lovely. Now, again, people don't like Trump. I understand that somewhat, but most people, everybody who's met him says generally he is very charming in person. I think we see this personableness on display. Is he going to come in there and be nasty to them? No, because actually he respects royalty. He finds it intriguing and interesting. And so as a result, he comes in here with immense amount of respect and dislike him, like him, what have you. This is his job as well. But of course, Donald Trump likes royalty and pomp and ceremony. So if you put some royals out there, he will be impressed. And that's a good way to, let's say, again, use that tool of soft diplomacy, the royalty, the glamour of the queen and the king and the future queen to, let's say, get Donald Trump in a better mood. Not the worst thing in the world. Not the worst thing in the world, guys. So again, unfortunately, we have no idea what they are saying, which is just disappointing. But it seems to be a lovely conversation. I don't know what happened because I noticed in pictures that Donald Trump had this little card and then he lost it. So I don't know what happened. But so you can see that right here. But let's go to a different video. So you can see this is another one. We're basically on the same thing, but we have a little bit of an added addition here. And so obviously pat on the arm. Again, we see smiles. Unfortunately, I hate the way the camera's angled. You can see Donald Trump really well, can't see the royals really well because I want to see their reaction. Because again, they are doing exactly what they are supposed to do as royalty. They're supposed to be as nice as to Donald Trump as they would be to a friend. Their job is not to be there to judge his politics, what he's done on an international level. That's not really their job. Even if, let's say, Vladimir Putin came to the UK for a state visit, Charles should try to the best of his ability to treat him as he would any other world leader. Because his job is not to be there to argue the politics and the policies. He's there to be that bit of, you could say, grease behind the wheel, greasing the more important talks, you could argue, that are happening in the prime minister's residence. A royal's there is to sort of grease that and make that better. That is their job. And so, and then it's like, they forgot. And they officially introduced her to Amalia. And so they're having a chat, laughs going around there. I think they were talking about probably how tall she is. Trump might have mentioned that they are all very tall. Donald Trump actually is maybe a little bit of the shorter one in the pile. So the Dutch are known for being tall, in case you didn't know. The Dutch are known for being tall. So this is a lovely interaction. A lovely interaction. Great to see. And so guys, here's a couple of other pictures. These are from Getty Images. I like these. He has his card or what have you. So it looks like, again, some personal relationships going around. And Donald Trump was the last person to attend because they are escorting him into the next room. So this is what royals do, guys. So let's go ahead and watch a little bit of this here. This is from Rick Evers, who is a Dutch royal correspondent, and he does great things on the Dutch. So if you enjoy the Dutch royals, I recommend following him on social media and stuff. And so here's them taking the group shot. And Maxima. This is, if you don't know about Queen Maxima, this is very Max. This is very Max to stand out that way. So fun little chats there between everyone. Most of the time they speak English largely, just because that's what pretty much everybody else speaks.
Okay. Thank you very much, guys.
And then they move on to the palace room. So we can see Donald Trump is right here. And I will point out Maxima and Catherine Amalia when I see them. And it's, again, important to show where the royals stand. And actually, it might be that they're waiting for the royals to arrive. So there's Willem-Alexander.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Queen and I are delighted to be hosting you tonight in this particular room. Because in 1899, my great-grandmother, Queen Wilhelmina, made this Oranjezaal available for the first Hague Peace Conference.
So we have a historical connection there, explaining what the room is. It's very impressive. And again, you could say impressing Donald Trump is very much a good thing to do.
Representatives of 26 countries attended, including the initiator of the conference, Tsar Nicholas II of Russia.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, now I want to research that.
Participants in those days were filled with the sense that peace would be everlasting. But behind the scenes, the first signs were already emerging of the arms race that would ultimately lead to the First World War.
I like the speech.
Peace, freedom, democracy, and the rule of law are our highest ideals. And yet history has taught us how fragile these values are if they're not protected.
So obviously we have this in the background of what is going on in the Middle East. He's referencing it. He's not referencing it, those sorts of things. Because again, his job is not really to be there to, let's say, have an opinion on the situation between Israel and Iran. I'm sure he does, but that's not his job. There's whoever is the head of the Dutch government, I apologize, I do not know who that is at this time. Whoever that is, they're the ones who are making those decisions. But again, we're all about greasing the wheel here. We're all about having the good conversations so that more good conversations can happen.
Where would we be without strong organizations that stand up for the defense of international stability, peace, and freedom? Where would we be without NATO's firm resolve?
So NATO, if you don't know, is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So it was established against, you could say, Russia. It was a Cold War organization that was designed to, if Russia attacked via the Warsaw Pact, which was all the countries part of basically the USSR, those that made up the USSR in various capacities, were to attack an allied nation, the allied nations of NATO would respond in return. And so it's sort of an important alliance between North Atlantic countries. So United States and Canada, I think, are the only ones that are outside of that European corridor that are part of NATO.
Mr. President, it means so much to us to welcome you in our home tonight. We cherish the bonds of friendship that will always unite our nations.
Very good. Like Trump, hate Trump. This is exactly what a king should be doing. We want to encourage and grow the bonds of friendship. They can have whatever opinions they want. And actually, in fact, they should try to limit those to the best of their ability, because inevitably, if you dislike somebody, that will come out in your conversation. But if you decide, hey, I'm just going to treat everybody like a good family friend, and we're just going to have a great chat while knowing as well I'm representing my people and stuff like that, that is so cool what royals do. It's so cool because he can be there to be that good feeling. So the next time Donald Trump has an issue with the Netherlands, he's like, oh, I remember the king and queen. They hosted me in the palace. And that might seem rather simple, guys. But at the end of the day, Yes, a lot of people treat world politics as an academic exercise. It honestly does, though, oftentimes come down to these type of relationships. You can have all the academic discussions that you want, but these type of dynamics really do win at the end of the day.
Our friends and partners from the Indo-Pacific region are welcome in our circle as guests. And Ukraine, which for years has been embroiled in a daily struggle, making great sacrifices to defend its freedoms and ours.
So including Ukraine is a bit of, you can say, antagonistic towards Russia, because Russia has tried to prevent any of the former Warsaw Pact countries from joining NATO. And anytime they do, Russia is just not happy, because the kind of perception you could say of Vladimir Putin is that he wants like a buffer between Russia and the rest of Europe. Now, Russia historically, you could say, has some reasons to be concerned, because obviously Napoleon and the Nazis came through Eastern Europe towards Russia, and it ended up attacking Russia on the home front. Of course, Russia being a very cold place, it generally doesn't behoove you to attack Russia, especially if you can't win by spring and you're there in the winter. Very, very bad idea. Both Napoleon and the Nazis suffered from making that critical error. But Russia still wants that buffer zone, and Ukraine is part of that. Ukraine also is considered like the breadbasket of Europe. It has very fertile soil lands, and so the Soviet Union via Stalin really did want and claimed Ukraine. Ukraine was kind of a huge thing to fight over. The Nazis wanted it as well in the Second World War. So there's a lot of historical connotations for Ukraine within this particular situation.
Is welcome too. The people of Ukraine, with whom we feel such close ties, deserve our continuing support. It's impressive to see how we, as NATO countries, have succeeded in forming a shield behind which peace and freedom can flourish.
And even though I'm sure he probably wrote part of this was partly probably the government evaluating some of this, but there has been a lot of talk. I've listened to a lot of these speeches within these state visits, and Ukraine and peace is very much a topic of consistent discussion.
A shield that's providing more and more people with protection. It's rightly argued.
So we can see Queen Maxima is right here, and Donald Trump is right here. And that empty chair, that is for Willem-Alexander.
That we need to make sufficient investments in our security, and that there must be a balance in the financial contributions made by the members of the alliance.
So yes, that's a big point of contention for Donald Trump, is that he wanted the NATO countries to all contribute the same as the United States, that everybody had to give 2%, I think, of their GDP to NATO. Donald Trump thought the United States was pulling its weight too much. And so anyways, interesting discussions.
There can be no solidarity unless everyone shoulders their own responsibility. Perhaps, beside Article 5 of the NATO Treaty, there needs to be more focus on Article 3. The provision that says that, and I quote, parties, separately and jointly, will maintain and develop their individual and collective capacity to resist armed attack.
Very interesting. That's actually very interesting, because I know there was some discussion about when it came to Article 5, because that was, I guess, some sort of contention with Donald Trump that said basically that if one party is attacked, all parties attack in kind to whoever the aggressor was. And this kind of flip side basically says is that all the countries in NATO, and we've actually seen this a little bit, especially in the Scandinavian countries, which are very, very much prepared for a potential Russian invasion. There is conscription services in those countries. Having an active military is actually something that I see in Scandinavian countries more than anything else, really, to be quite honest, even though they are largely peaceful. So it is a fascinating thing that he's pointing out here.
These subjects are bound to come up in your discussions tomorrow. I know that you will address them with wisdom, and I have every confidence that the outcome will be a NATO that is stronger than ever.
Because he won't be in those discussions, because that's not his job. But he can be here to be, again, the sort of flash before the substantive discussions that happen tomorrow. Well, that would technically be today.
Future historians recognize the 2025 summit as a milestone. The summit where we made groundbreaking decisions and where we took responsibility together for the preservation of peace, freedom, and the rule of law.
So looking to the future, there is obviously the International Court of Justice. Is that what it's called? In The Hague. So that's well known for being a great spot for it because of that. International Criminal Courts, that's what it is. So we can see sort of the whole audience here.
Let us stay focused on what for 76 years has been the key to NATO's success, our unshakable unity and our mutual confidence that we can always count on one another.
Sounds good. Again, he's repeating what the government, I would argue, really does want him to share.
May I now ask to raise your glass with me to our alliance.
No clinking of glasses. Very, very surprising.
Cheers.
I'm hoping we'd see Amalia. Amalia's kind of over here. I don't think we ever got a good view of her. Okay, and it looks like maybe who did Donald Trump? I'm just curious if it was Alexander or not. So we got that, and again, very important to note. And I will come back here real quick to X to share where Amalia was, because I wanted to definitely point that out, is that here we have Catherine Amalia, who again is only 21. And so she is seated right next to Emmanuel Macron. And I can't remember what she's over. I want to say Germany. And so she's between basically Germany, France, and Germany. That's a big role. She is there to host, and she's learning basically how to do it in, you could say, one of the most difficult ways possible, which is being just thrown into this huge event where what she says could have a real impact on her government. And that is an important role that a royal plays, and a royal must learn how to navigate those challenges. And there's no better way for her to learn this than here. This is a job like no other, and you can really only learn it by doing it in many ways. And then we have Maxima. I can't see, I'm not sure who this gentleman is, but obviously she is seated next to Vladimir Zelensky. And Willem-Alexander is there hosting Donald Trump. Because again, it's all about trying to figure out how to, Donald Trump is the most powerful person in the room. So how do the royals, how do they deal with that? So let's go over to this last bit here where Donald Trump obviously spent the night. I think that is the beast right there, the Cadillac beast. And so he woke up in the palace and they had a little interaction here.
Good morning, sir. We'll start right here. And in 3, 2,
You can actually see all
one.
the photographers in the
It's
mirror.
actually asking.
And Donald Trump does a thumbs up. So I think I feel like Maxima could put a little bit more smile into her feature. So maybe she's not a huge fan of Donald Trump, or maybe she's just had a long night. I'm not sure.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
So also,
That's the picture we want.
yeah.
Sorry, it just makes me really laugh that he's there with the king and queen doing the thumbs up sign. It just really makes me laugh.
Well, I hope you slept well.
It was great.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful. But actually,
What's Maxima doing? I don't know what she was doing. That wasn't the best showing by Maxima, I have to say.
that's you.
So that wall, in case you're curious, I guess is kind of a reflection of Dutch DNA to kind of represent the Dutch that are from all over the world. So I will say that was not the best showing from Maxima, but you can kind of see what a royal does there. A royal is there to, let's say, give the president of the United States a nice place to rest his head. That way he can be somewhat impressed for the day ahead. And yeah, that might be silly, but that's what royals do. It's just like a business event. You don't go and let's say you're trying to close the deal. You won't give the person you're trying to close the deal with a crummy room in a hotel. You're going to give them a nice room in a hotel because it's part of that greasing the wheel type thing for bigger discussions to come. And that's what royals do. Now compare this to Meghan Markle. So when Donald Trump came to do his state visit in 2019 in the United Kingdom, this was in June. So it was, roughly a month after Archie had been born. So I'm sure Meghan was still recovering in many ways, but she didn't show up to any of the events. And in fact, there were videos of Prince Harry looking rather pouty at having to attend, let's say, the luncheon, because Meghan Markle is a very vocal critic of Trump, and Trump has actually criticized her too. And there was a bit where Trump criticized Catherine as well, or something to the effect of regarding the whole topless photo situation in France in 2012. And Catherine, of course, did not hold a grudge. It did not say anything. She just probably talked to him like anybody else because that is what a royal does. Meghan Markle, by I think purposely raising a fuss, refusing to go, and I think having her husband playing along with that fact because she's not a fan of Trump, did the exact opposite of what a royal is supposed to do. She made it personal when it's supposed to be professional, and she's representing something greater than herself. Meghan Markle cannot see beyond herself. That is why she was a terrible royal. Royalty is all about doing what's good for the country rather than what's good for yourself. All royals, I think, are forced to do things they don't want to do, just like all of us are in some way or another. But that's the role they play. And sometimes those actions have good reactions or bad reactions, but their role is to represent the British people. It's not to represent themselves, their own political ideology, their own, let's say, social and personal ideology. They're there to represent the British people, the Dutch people, the Spanish people, the Belgian people, the Danish people, and not themselves. And that is why what royals do, I think, is so cool. They're not mired in the politics. And yes, I'm sure they all had their opinions on Donald Trump, but they're not being paid, you could say, to have their opinions. They're paid to represent their people. And I think Willem-Alexander and Queen Maxima, except for maybe that little bit at the end, did a fantastic job. And it was very nice of them to invite Donald Trump to their home. So this was from the Associated Press, and I forgot to mention this real quick. But President Trump has accepted King Willem-Alexander's invitation to spend the night at Huistenbosch in The Hague. This is an historic event, marking the first time an American president will stay at the king's residence, because Donald Trump had originally planned on staying somewhere else. So their gracious invitation to him was, I think, a stroke of brilliance. And it is great to see that Donald Trump accepted. Hopefully great talks were had, not to get too mired into the politics of it all. But royals, I think, have an awesome job. They don't have to get into all the minutia of the parties and the policies and everything. They can just be gracious hosts. And I think Willem-Alexander and Queen Maxima and Princess Catherine Amalia played those roles to perfection. So guys, let me know what you think of this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall talk to you again very, very soon. Bye.